Hi guys, Jenny here again. Now this time, because I've been asked, I'm going to look at how we can change the More Info page on our Lovelace configuration in Home Assistant. So that means that this time we're going to look at another custom component, and this time it is the Browser Mod component. Before we get into that though, I want to have a quick look back at the multiple entity row that we looked at in the calendarific video, because the configuration for that has changed, so you may now have a few entities that aren't showing up. So we'll have a look at that and then we'll get on to Browser Mod. Okay, when we did the calendarific video, we set up a card here using the multiple entity row custom component, which gave us lots of extra information. Now you'll notice now all my extra information has disappeared. That's because I've updated the multiple entity row card from HACS. Its configuration has changed, so it's not displaying the extra information. So we're going to configure this card again to get that information back. So what have we got to change? Well, before, where we had info, we had the date underneath the name of the sensor, and the field has now changed. It's now secondary underscore info, and we can leave everything else the same. That's to bring it in line with the rest of Home Assistant. We can see, great, that's brought the date back. Then the other items we had shown were the attributes, the weeks remaining, and the current years, which have now disappeared altogether. And that's because primary and secondary have now been removed as configuration options. We can configure any additional information to be displayed on this multiple entity row as a list. So rather than using primary and secondary, we just put entities, and then we display the items by putting them in a list. So it's the attributes, the weeks remaining, and what we want to name it. And then the second one is the attribute for current years. And that's it. Now we can see we've got all that information back, and we can add any other entities or attributes that we like in this manner as well. So it's ever so handy. Save that and we can see that's brought that all back as it was before. Okay, on to Browser Mod. Quite often, if we bring up the more info for an entity, it might not be all that we want it to be. We can see in this one, we brought up the Jenny's birthday entity. It's giving us a graph and the relevant attributes to this entity. The attributes are all well and good, but in this case, is the graph really much use? At maximum, if I remember rightly, we can only get 8 days out of this graph, and for a sensor that we know is only going to change once a day, because you're not going to get less than a day of countdown within a day, so it's not really a lot of use. So do we want it there? Could we put something else there instead? Well, with Browser Mod we can change this to whatever we want. So what we're going to do is go over to the Home Assistant Community Store, and in the integrations you can search for Browser Mod. Hit the install if you've got the install, and when you've done that, press Restart Home Assistant, and when it comes back, you'll have the Browser Mod installed. Okay, with that done, we need to go into our configuration in the configuration YAML file, and we need to add these lines. Browser Mod to enable the integration, And you don't have to put the prefix in, but it is helpful because the browser mod does a lot more than just change the More Infos card. And I'll come to that in a minute. But for now, we're going to put in prefix browser underscore mod underscore. We're going to save the configuration and reboot Home Assistant once again. With Home Assistant back online, we can edit our configuration, and this time we want to edit the raw config. And right at the top, we want to add a section pop-up cards. Then we put the name of the entity that we want to change the More Info page for. We then put card, and then we put the entities that we want to appear on the card, and the type of card it is, and what title we're giving the card. We can use any card for this, including other custom components. So we can see at the moment what I've done is I've given it a standard entities card, and I've given it the entities Jenny's birthday, and in this case the sync light. If you save that, when you now click on that to bring up the more information, you get a card. In this case, it's got the title Modified More Info, because that's what I called it. It's got the Jenny's birthday entity, and it's got the sync light, and we can even flick the switch as it was. Okay, now I've been asked, is it possible to create a More Info card that has all the information that was already on the More Info card, but without the graph? Well, yes, there are a few ways of doing it. Here's one I've come up with. So it's the modified More Info again. It's got the number of days to the birthday, the years at the next anniversary, the current years, the date, and the weeks remaining. The way I've done this one's a little bit long-winded, and it uses the two custom components that we're using already, the multiple entity row card and the browser mod. So in our raw configuration editor, in the pop-up card for the Jenny's birthday sensor, we've given it the title, the modified More Info, and I'm using an entities card. We've turned off the header toggle, and the entities that we're showing are Jenny's birthday. Then we're using a single multiple entity row for each attribute. So we're telling it that the sensor, it's using the Jenny's birthday sensor entity. We're disabling the icon. We're telling it that it's a multiple entity row entry. We're telling it we don't want to show the state, because that will always be the number of days to go. We've given it the name of the attribute that we want it to be displayed as, years at next anniversary. We could change this to something like age at next anniversary or whatever we like. And then we're telling it in the entities list that we want it to display the attribute named years at next anniversary. And we do that for each of the attributes we want to display. There are other ways to do this. You could do this using a collection of cards combined in a layout card. You could do it in a stacking card. We could do it using a markdown card and then templating the information into it. We can literally use any card we like within this browser mode pop-up. So now we've got all the information that we wanted, and we've got no graph. And because we can customize these titles, we can have them show whatever we actually want. So there we go. That's the More Info screen changed to whatever we want, literally whatever we want. If it's in Home Assistant, you can put it on that screen. So there we go. That was a quick video, wasn't it? But wait, there's more. This browser mod custom component from Thomas Lorenz is incredibly powerful. If we go over to the developer tab and the states page, we will see that there are new entities that we did not have before. Now remember, when we configured the browser mod component, we put in prefix browser_mod, and that's because it will automatically generate some new entities. Here's the first one: light browser mod, and then a device ID. And what this is any browser that is logged in to the Home Assistant interface will use its browser device ID and create this entity. And in the case of the light, if we bring it up, we can turn it off and watch what happens. In this case, it came straight back on again, because obviously we're controlling it from the same page, and I moved the mouse. But it will turn off the browser's display. Now, if you're running a tablet on your wall, say, for instance, this can be used in an automation to turn off the screen, to send it black. Do note that it just actually displays a black screen on a lot of devices. There are ways to get it to actually physically turn the screen off, which of course is great for battery life, but I'm not going to go into that now. But that can of course be used in your automations. Another one it's given us is a media player. And this media player is the browser that is open. Now if we imagine that we've had a collection of devices connected throughout the house, we could have a tablet on the wall in the sitting room, another one in the kitchen. All of these have now become controllable media players. And we can do that by making any automation to control it on here. We can even use the text-to-speech.
Hello.
And there we go. That played through the speakers connected to the computer that I am browsing this page on. I've only got one, because I've only got one device connected, opening, viewing the web page. But it is there. We've got another one, a sensor. And this one gives us information about the browser. So in this case, it's showing me that it's coming from browser mod, when it was last seen, the device ID, the path that we are looking at the moment. At the moment, we're looking at the Developer Tools state page. Whatever page we are looking at is available there. And it gives us information about the current user and the user agent that is being used and how big the display is. Of course, all this information can also be used in other automations. Okay, at the moment, the biggest downside we've got is that this device ID is not very user-friendly. So how do we get around that? Well, what we can do, once we've opened the page and it's developed this browser mod sensor, we can copy this device ID. Once we've copied it, we can paste that into our configuration YAML. So, under the browser mod, we then add devices. We add the ID, and then we can give it a name. And in this case, I'm going to call it Desktop PC. Okay, go ahead and restart Home Assistant again, and then we'll have a look what's happened to those entity names. Okay, Home Assistant's come back online, and now we can see that we've now got Light Desktop PC, Media Player Desktop PC, and Sensor Desktop PC. Where we put the prefix browser mod in before, it added the name Sensor, browser mod, and then the device ID. This is ever so helpful for finding them in the first place. Once we've got devices that we know are staying as they are, we can replace them in the configuration YAML to give us a more user-friendly name. Okay, we can now control the light on the device, and we can control a media player directly on the device. Now this is fantastic, but there's still more. And first, let me remind you that the device doesn't respond to a physical device. It's not one tablet or one computer. It is the combination of that device with that browser. So for example, if I'm using Chrome and I bring up this page, this will get one device ID. If I then bring it up using Edge browser, for instance, or Safari, each one of those will get its own separate ID. If you're using a tablet on the wall, it's always going to be the same one, so it's not a problem. Okay, so those devices are controllable just the same as any other media player or light. We can also disable entities if we want. So the light and the media player that are exposed, we can disable. We do that by adding it again into that configuration YAML file. So under the desktop PC, we can put disable and then the entities that we want to disable. So let's say media player. And that would prevent a media player on this device being exposed. I'm not going to do that because I quite like it. Okay, there's still more. Browser mod exposes a host of services that we can use in our automations, and they're amazing. They're really good if you've got a device around the place, especially if you've got devices on the wall. So I'm going to go through a few of them quickly. We're going to do this on the Services tab just for ease so that I can show them to you. We've got Browser Mod Blackout. If we hit that, it will turn all of the device's screens to black as far as it can. That could be handy, especially at night. Close pop-up. I can't really display that one, but we can use pop-up cards now that we can make pop up on other devices, and this will then tell them to close. I'm not certain how the command works. I haven't found suitable information for that. Debug will display a pop-up on the devices with the device ID. Lovelace Reload will force Lovelace to be reloaded. Fairly straightforward. With things like these services, if we don't tell it which device we want it to be operated on, it will do it for all the devices, every browser that is connected. If we want to specify a particular one, all we need to add is a device ID line. So for browser mod Lovelace reload, we can put in device ID colon and then a list of the devices. So the only one I've got here at the moment is desktop PC. We can call the service and it's not working because I'm not in Lovelace, but if we were in Lovelace it would then reload. We've got browser mod more info. The more info will put a more info page for whichever entity we select on the devices that we choose. So we could say, for example, entity ID, let's use that one again, sensor.Jenny's birthday. If I leave it at that and don't give it any device IDs, it will display it on every page. And there it is. If we wanted to do it on a specific one, again, we just need to go device ID and give it a list of the devices that we want it to be displayed on. Fantastic. The next service is browser mod navigate. And we can use this to force a different device to navigate to a specific page. But it doesn't have to be a Lovelace path. It can be any path within Home Assistant. But for an example, we can go navigation path, and then the path that we want it to go to, so /Lovelace. Let's just go 1, because I think that's what the page is called. And there it went by itself. Again, we can put device ID and tell it to change a particular device to that page. Okay. The next service we've got is no blackout. Now, if you've used blackout service, the no blackout service will remove the blackout. The next service is pop-up. This one will display a pop-up card on the device that we choose, showing any card that we configure in the service data. So in this case, I've put a pop-up example card. It's an entities card. The only entity I've put on there is the sync light, and I've told it I just want it to be displayed on the desktop PC. When that service is called, this device shows that pop-up. We can use browser mod set theme, and all we need to do here is tell it what theme we want to display on the device. I can't do this one for you because I haven't got any themes installed on this instance of Home Assistant at the moment. We can use browser mod toast. Now toast is a really handy little messaging service that will display a message on the screen. All we do is put message, type in the message we want to see, call the service, and it's popped up there as a little toast message. Ever so handy. Now this can be made to stay up for longer or to stay on the screen. It defaults to 3 seconds. But by adding the duration, we can add a time in milliseconds that it will be displayed. That's 5 seconds. and it'll stay there for 5 seconds before it disappears. Okay, so that's my quick look at BrowserMod. I can't stress how much I love this component, especially if you've got tablets on your wall or anything like that around your house. The best thing I can suggest is that you go over to the GitHub README page, where Thomas gives you a load of really useful information. It's a fantastic README giving lots of great configuration examples. And there is so much you can do with this custom component. You'll notice here he's even included a camera, which, okay, at the moment is experimental, but it will allow you to use the camera from your device in Home Assistant as well. So that's it for my first look at the BrowserMod custom component from Thomas Lovense. He's done a fantastic job of these, and I think the services really add something very useful to Home Assistant, especially if you've got tablets or anything like that around your house. Check it out, give it a try, see what you can do with it. A big thank you from me to Thomas Lovense. This is fantastic. Okay guys, I will see you all again next time. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Hi guys, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below and the bell so that you get notified when I post new videos. Also, if you'd like to support my channel, you can check out my Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee pages. And in any case, remember to hit the thumbs up. Till next time guys, see you soon.